South Point offers all the types of entertainment you'd expect at a first-class Las Vegas resort. Did you know our 400-seat showroom is one of Las Vegas's top destinations for live entertainment? Enjoy live performances by classic Vegas entertainers, bands, and today's hottest comedians, plus a rock and dance floor. You can also enjoy live entertainment at the Grand View Lounge, where you'll feel all the vibes of old Las Vegas. Enjoy the music, and if you love to laugh, don't miss The Dirty at 12:30, our very own free comedy show, every Friday night at 12:30 a.m. in the Grand View Lounge. The Dirty is 100% free, so arrive early. Go to southpointcasino.com or call the box office at 77136 for today's performances at the showroom and the Grand View Lounge. When you're ready for your favorite cocktail, stop in and unwind at one of our 7 specialty lounges. There's a bar around every corner, because you're in Vegas, baby. South Point Casino has plenty of attractions for the whole family. Catch a movie. Our 16-screen movie theater includes 2 XD Extreme screens for the ultimate in viewing, sound, and luxury. After the show, treat the family to a variety of treats at our old-fashioned ice cream parlor, Kate's Corner. We scoop up a variety of creamy concoctions, including smoothies, hand-dipped cones, milkshakes, malts, sodas, and sundaes. At Kate's, there's something for everyone. And if you've still got time to spare, our bowling center might be right up your alley. Voted Best of Las Vegas, it's a great place for friends and family fun. 64 lanes, a pro shop, snack bar, and arcade. And while the kids are bowling, you can play slots and sip on a drink in the Alley Cat Lounge while overlooking the lanes. For our more serious and professional bowlers, the South Point is also home to a separate tournament bowling plaza.
Sports by the Book Football Frenzy on a Friday for one last time in 2024. I'm Jeff Parles, thrilled to be with you as always. Just want to shout out our crew as always. Jerry, Vince, Sean, who I think Sean just left. Sean,
I had lunch with Sean downstairs.
Sean just did the I'll see you all next year because he's off he'll work this weekend, but then he's off until Wednesday, which is, of course, the first. Ryan and Drew Dog. Caden, just thanks to everyone on our crew to make sure that these shows have not only sounded good, but have looked good, or as good as they could look with the three of us on it. Well, at least the two of us. I mean, Vinny's hair saves us all.
Robert over there.
I resemble that.
Yeah, so Vinny Magliulo is here. Chris Andrews is here, sportsbook director here at the South Point. Chris, Vinny, sports betting Hall of Famer along with Chris. We'll have another sports betting Hall of Famer a little bit later, and Jimmy Vaccaro, the one and only. Jimmy Vaccaro will be with us in about 45 minutes. And now joining us for the second consecutive week to begin the show, Fox Sports Bear Bets podcast as well. Look at this, the quad box to get us going here on a Friday.
Look at that crew.
Look at that. Our good friend Chris Fallica. Oh, wow. Ryan's just showing off now.
Wow. It's a superfecta.
I'm not going to take offense, Jeff Parles. You did not introduce me as Suffolk County Sports Hall of Famer Chris Fallica, so don't worry about it. I'm good with that.
And we didn't know. Oh my gosh, Jeff should know, Chris.
I should have. I really should have known. I apologize for that, Bear. But before we get into these playoff games, We'll even bring up some of the bowls that are on the college football jackpot parlay card. $5 to win $25,000. Yeah. You got to get them in by 12:30 tomorrow afternoon because the Pop-Tarts Bowl. Don't worry, we won't show Vinny the trophy again. Yeah, we won't do it. But I've already. I have a filled out. As you can see, all the Scantron bubbles are ready to go. I can't wait to go 7 and 8 on it, Chris.
Well, you never know. You might win on it. I mean, I don't know. Right now,
7 and 8 would be amazing.
You got to get a hold of your buddy Gil and send him in there to put in some cards. It's a huge overlay. Seriously, I mean, seriously, like about a $20,000 overlay as we speak. Now, I hope we cut that down a bit, but it's a huge overlay. Where do you get that in the casino?
Yeah, my friend Gil, I think, took off and went to San Francisco for the weekend. So I got to find another friend out there to make a run on.
You need a beard and a mustache.
So Bear, let's. I just want to go back to the first round of the playoff first. Just get your reaction on the four favorites covering. I mean, look, we see it. They see it all the time in college football. Good teams hold serve at home. That's just what happens here. And all four teams covered. And quite frankly, when Clemson was the most competitive of the underdogs, it was kind of showed what this weekend really was to kick off the college football playoff.
Yeah, and I think this is something that none of us should have been surprised by. When you are expanding a group of teams by 4, or really 8, we're going from 4 to 12, and you're expanding the field, and which means you are essentially diluting the field and water downing the field and getting more flawed teams into the field. And now you're making these 4 teams who have to play a game on an opponent's home field in the first round. We should have expected that, and we should have seen that coming, along with the whole schedule. Look, there is no other sport. We talked about it last week. No other sport out there is as schedule impacted as college football. And I think we saw the teams that didn't beat anybody during the year, Indiana, SMU, kind of exposed a little bit. Now, was that going to make it? Does that mean that they shouldn't have gotten in, and Alabama or Ole Miss or South Carolina or Miami should have gotten in? Look, I don't know. All of those teams did stuff during the year to make it easy for the committee not to put them in. So my bigger issue is with the seeding, and I think we're going to see that moving forward having a massive impact. That now you're going to have Ohio State play Oregon and Notre Dame play Georgia. Conference title game losers got an easier path than conference title game winners, and we probably have what most people think the 2 best teams in the country playing each other in the quarterfinal. But we should not have been surprised. We even talked about it last week, how Chris even said a couple of times, I kind of like the favorite here. And it's a very rare instance where the favorites wind up winning and covering, and Bryce probably did okay.
Yeah, really. I hate laying points as a bookmaker all these years. I just automatically assume that we have value on the dog, but I like the favorites. And, I tried to stem the tide a little bit. Didn't work that well, as Mr. Gaughan was in my office reminding me of. But that's just the way it goes. I mean, the favorites win. We know what's going to happen. But I think this week's going to be, a little bit better. We still got a couple of double-digit situations, and we'll talk about them. But I'm with you on the seeding. I think the seeding definitely needs to change. And I think it's probably nearly unanimous, unless you're talking to somebody from Arizona State, or Boise. They're going to tell you the seeding needs to be changed, and I think it will be for next year.
I think the seeding will be changed before they expand the field, because I think they're going to expand the field at some point too. And I think one of the impacts of these bowl games that we're seeing with the way some of these games have moved, and some of these and so many opt-outs and everything like that, I think is going to have an impact at some point as well. But I know there's been a lot of talk and about what happened last week and everything. Look, you know what, we see blowouts in NFL playoff games too. Yep. So I'm not going to base everything on 1 year, but we did, as Chris mentioned, the fact that the seeding needs to be addressed, and it will be. But I also think that we will see probably. I think it goes to 16 teams after that, guys. At some point, I don't see the playoffs doing anything but expanding.
16. Look, it would be fun regardless. More football games is good with me.
I'd rather book those games than look at these bowl games.
I want to ask Chris something while we got you here.
Please.
What is the future of the bowl games? Now, not the playoff, obviously, but what's the future of these bowl games? I mean, are they viable as a product, like from ESPN or Fox or whoever's showing? Are they viable as a product? Because they're barely viable as a betting product. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I think they are viable simply because they are being propped up and financed by television. ESPN realizes they can make money on these games. People will watch the games. They can command good advertising dollars for these games. So a lot of these games, like you will see, like if you do a little research, do a little digging, you'll see that a lot of these bowl games are owned by either ESPN Enterprises or ESPN Entertainment or whatever the name is that they're calling it now. And I think as long as these teams, or rather the networks, see that they're making a return on the investment, they're going to continue. Look, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be people in the stands. It doesn't mean that tickets are going to go well. It doesn't mean tons of people are going to bet on them. But I think as long as people are tuning in and ESPN's making money on the ad sales, these games are going to go nowhere.
As a bookmaker, let me just tell you, we mentioned it during the first game. That game moved 9 points.
Yeah.
I mean, now day of the game, we are doing some business. Like today, we got a nice. I hate to call it a nice slate, but the action is there today. Coming up to it, like if you'd asked me 2 days ago, I'd say we got nothing on these games, and I'm moving them like I would move an exhibition NFL game. Just on air, which I hate to do.
Have you guys? I mean, you guys have been around doing this for a while. Have you seen?
Hey,
what's he talking about?
What are you going to say before bowl games?
Yeah, exactly. Way back in the old days. Have you seen more games where people are just getting and taking happily the worst of the number and winning? Today with Navy, with UNLV, with UTSA. How many examples are there of these teams, of lines just moving ridiculous moves and people just chasing the steam and still winning? Like people were laying a point or Oklahoma, Navy, even from 8 or 9 or 7 and is still covered and win.
That's the thing, Bear. If they start losing, they'll stop doing it. But that ain't happened yet. And I don't,
look at the Syracuse game. The Syracuse game is 18. It opened 7.5. So let's forget you missed 7. You missed everything up to 10. Who cares? Lay 11, 12, 13 because you're still getting it.
Well, I mean, they are basically playing the Wazoo marching band tonight.
Well,
so I will.
I get it.
I will throw that out there.
But to Bear's point, right? It doesn't. You know what? If it's a steam. It's a steam, and folks will follow the steam until, like Chrissy said, things go the other way.
I don't know.
I'm sure people are going to lay 2.5 or 2 or 3, whatever it is, with Texas Tech now, as opposed to, hey, you could have taken them 1.5, taking them +2, and here they are. They're laying points. People are going to lay it.
Yep,
they're going to do it.
Craziness.
They laid 1 and 1.5. That's for sure.
The bad part is I got to pay them, Chris, when they're done. That's the worst part.
It was funny. I was joking with Jeff before we came on. Now, what price would have you been happily laid after the first drive of the Oklahoma Navy game today on an Oklahoma team total over 27.5? Like I laid over 27.5, 127-0 right down the field. Here we go. How'd that work out for me?
I don't know, but that's the last night I'm watching the pro game. Seattle marches right down. Okay, they got to settle for a field goal. I needed the game under. I said, boy, I might be in a little trouble here. I was not.
2 and 3 weeks on Thursday night with no touchdowns in it. As ridiculous as that is. By the way, also, Bear, it's kind of funny. The only coach who actually went for 2 properly in these bowl games is the one you actually needed to kick the PAT. Exactly. Naturally, here today. Exactly. Still, even though I had Toledo yesterday, I'm still mad at Narduzzi for what he did in the overtime. But that's a different discussion for a different time.
Yeah.
Why do you want one play from the 1 for the win when you can take a play from the 3 and have to score and then have to stop the other? But seriously, what does as an administrator or someone in the pit, wouldn't that bring into question this guy's capabilities of realizing game and clock and time and score situations and just common sense? Mm-hmm. That would be wait a minute, he doesn't understand this. Why is he my coach?
It's again. I'm a known non-fan of Pat Narduzzi,
welcome to Flashback Friday.
Hey, it didn't hurt me. It didn't hurt me. I had Toledo money line yesterday, so I was very happy to see him kick the field goal. And all.
Would you take plus 120 on a game that started at 7.5? I'm only joking.
You're gonna make me look what I had. I took it after they announced the third quarterback starting, but it was still only a point difference from where you guys open, which is kind of crazy, actually.
On that game.
Yeah.
Can we talk about some games where we know who's playing?
Oh, well, I'm going to get to that right now. We're going to go.
We can actually still bet on.
Yeah, well, we're going to go to Arizona here. We're going to Arizona. We'll go to the home of the Arizona Cardinals, where the Fiesta Bowl gets played. Boise State, the 3 seed with a bye, is an 11-point underdog against the 6 seed Penn State. Again, of course, Penn State was rated ahead of Boise State because of the format. Boise gets the bye. Penn State thrashes SMU last Saturday. This game is on New Year's Eve, which is on Wednesday. Bear are at 11 right now. Really, all the 10.5s are basically gone. There's one left. And there's one left on a premium offshore as well. But it's been all about Penn State from 10 to 11 here on this game with a total of 53.
Yeah, I laid 10.5. I'd still lay 11. I just don't know. And I would kind of lean towards the under here as well. I just don't know how Boise is going to be able to block Abdul Carter in that Penn State defensive line. I don't know how Ashton Genty is going to have a big game running the ball against Penn State, but yeah, I can see this being somewhere along the lines of like a 34-17 type of game in that realm. Because look, I mean, it wasn't like Penn State's offense did a hell of a lot against SMU. They got the 2 pick sixes, didn't move the ball a ton, but SMU's defense was one of the better rush defenses in the country, and they hung in there pretty well. But I just think these are the types of games that James Franklin wins comfortably. When they're in that range of like between a 7 and 14, 17-point favorite, they have a very, very good record, not only straight up, but against the numbers. So these types of situations, I think, and we talked about the seeding before, Penn State being the 6th seed, getting a home game against the 11, getting a game where they're a double-digit favorite against the higher seed, it's ridiculous. But I do think Penn State will go out there, take care of their business, and wind up taking on the winner of Georgia Notre Dame. And
I think there's something also about the fact that a little bit more of a rhythm, right? Football's a rhythm, right? Playing every week and playing with Boise. Sometimes rest does not help teams either, right? And to Chris's point, then you're also talking about a class difference, and we've seen it in the first couple of games, Chrissy.
Well, I think the number's okay. You know, I really didn't have any dispute with the 10 when it opened, but when it started moving, I moved it up because I kind of agree with Bear. These are the games at Franklin. I mean, it's right in his wheelhouse, these kind of games. But I would say if you are looking to bet Boise, Penn State's been known to get off to a slow start. Right now, we're at 6.5 minus 20 on the favorite. I think you might be able to find a 7 by post time. You might even be able to find one now. But I think if you're looking to bet Boise, probably your best bet is to look for a 7 the first half and try to bet that because, like I said, there's been times this year when Penn State has gotten off a little slowly, and I can see that happening in this game.
Yeah,
to your point, Chris, of the game against SMU. Jennings had a guy wide open on 4th down. He hits him. They take the lead 7-0. Who the hell knows what happens after that? But yeah, to your point, that's a pretty good example.
Right now, the only 7s in the first half that I see right now are offshore. Everyone, it's pretty much blanketed a 6.5 minus 20 first half across the board.
Yeah, we
on an Indy Lions.
How many days to go?
So 4 days. Yeah,
7.
I agree.
You'll see a 7 flat pop up. You might even see it right at this counter right back here.
Yeah, more than possible. I'll save my thoughts for a little bit later on the show on this game. It just, it feels like Boise State's going to have a shot. It feels like Genty's got to have one of those 200-yard rushing games, which against this defense, I don't know if exactly.
I want to address that. Bear, you mentioned Abdul Carter. How highly do you rate him as far as like among the linebackers in college football right now?
I know the people that I respect, like Todd McShay and Steve mentioned, they have him as the number 1 edge guy right now. And they say there's a chance that Mikael Williams from Georgia may be a guy that he could test through the roof and maybe overtake him. But, I mean, he's either going to be the first or second edge guy off the board, and certainly probably the second defensive player off the board after Travis Hunter, who even knows if he's going to be a wide receiver or a corner moving forward. But he's a hell of a player, and I think he's going to the poor SMU left tackle had a hard time with it. I can only imagine what a Mountain West left tackle is going to have to deal with on a week from today.
One of my good friends, John Fallica, who I mentioned, terrific scout, he knows players. He called me this morning, or texted me this morning. He says, "This Abdul Carter," he says, "that's one of the best guys he's seen in a long, long time." And going back to, he has another history of being a Penn State fan, so he's seen some pretty good linebackers in his day. But I think Carter is certainly in the conversation among some of the rest of those.
I don't know. He looked pretty good in green. That's all I would say, Bear. He looked pretty good in green.
There's a lot of guys that would look good in green.
No, I mean, yeah. Well, except for
don't have enough draft
Except for the 53 guys on their roster.
Yeah,
right now.
pretty much. Well,
Too soon.
I'd say 46, but yeah, the point stands for sure. All right, let's go to Atlanta New Year's Day. Arizona State, yeah, they get the bye, but they don't get to play 20 miles from their campus, and they have to now play a team that I think is just a dreadful matchup for them with Texas. The bettors did take the 14, though.
They did.
So it's 13.5 now with the Horns down in Atlanta at the Peach Bowl against the Sun Devils with a total of 52, Bear.
I don't love this game. If we see a 14 pop again, I would consider taking it. But I mean, these numbers on the favorites are just so inflated because of just we saw them cover in the first round. I mean, Sammy P and I were talking about this on Bear Bets, how until it happens, and like people just continue betting the favorite. His true number on this game was like Texas 7.5 or so. Whoa. And now you're looking at nearly double that. And that probably takes into account some of Arizona State being down their best wide receiver and their passing game being a little bit of a question mark. But Texas, I thought Texas would have an easier time with Clemson than they did. Quinn Ewers still makes some pretty bad decisions. The fact that they couldn't really put that game away. Another defense came up big when they needed to, but I don't have a bet on this game right now. I would, if you can wait it out and maybe a 14 pops again, consider taking ASU. But I don't have anything in this game that I know some people made a case maybe for ASU first half in this game, Chris. You kind of like what you did with Boise, thinking that they're just going to come out and empty the kitchen sink, just throw whatever they can at Texas early on in this game to kind of hang around, and then ultimately the depth and the dominance in the trenches for Texas would wear them out. So I don't dislike that thinking, but I don't know if I want to lay 13.5 here.
I kind of would agree with what you said there. I really hadn't thought of it, to be honest with you, but I think Arizona State is the kind of team, and they have the kind of coach who I think is going to throw the kitchen sink at Texas. And listen, one defensive back slips, or, we get a turnover, or, God knows what, you could easily cover the 7 points. So that might be a good angle to take. But also, as you advance that point, I think Texas has certainly the power, the physical capabilities of wearing down this Arizona State team. Let's not forget, what we have Arizona State conference season total wins.
I did it.
Yeah. I only did conference, so I think it was like 2.5.
I bet the under 2.5, and I thought it was a great bet.
So I guess it wasn't that bad of a number, But they did come from nowhere. I don't think they have the horses to compete on this level with a Texas. So again, first half might be a good play. Barrett, I made the number 14, so I have no beef with it. And listen, we did see some of the blowouts in the last round, so I think you will see a 14 again once the public goes to work on this game.
Yeah, recency bias is going to certainly it impacted this too. So there's an element of anticipation. 7 for the first half. So again, we talked last week about SMU being up tempo. I think ASU is even more up tempo, and if you're interested in them at +7 in the first half, I could see it.
It's really hoping that if there was a healthy Jordan Tyson in this game for Arizona State, to at least give them a real deep field threat. Right. Now, it didn't matter against Iowa State. They just ran him out of the building. But against this D-line, I just have a hard time seeing Scatabo getting loose. But if he does, I can hang in this thing. And I think your point is 100% right, Bear. This will be the kitchen sink game from Kenny Dillingham. We will see a lot. Yeah. We will see a bunch of weird things, especially in the first half from Arizona State. And if they work, hey, look, all the pressure is on Texas. There's no pressure on Arizona State. They weren't supposed to be here. They were predicted to finish last in the Big 12. They were no chance they're going to be here.
We need to do a post-mortem and just file one of our like a note away in our Apple iCal or Notes app. Just all of like the most common season win total thoughts that we heard this year about like Arizona State being like the worst team in the country. There was another one too out there that was like it completely just went the other way. Like
BYU,
all these teams.
BYU was another one.
BYU,
them and Arizona State, the two.
I don't know. I have to delete my because we actually all had a vote in the studio because we covered Big 12 Media Days. I need to throw away that ballot that I sent in because it was that bad.
Frame it.
Yeah, well, whatever. I had Kansas winning the league, so that worked out very well there, Bear. All right.
Well, they might have been the best team. They and Baylor might have been the best teams in the league by the end of the year.
Yeah, that was that weird game the final week of the year where Baylor, hey, again, credit to Baylor. They whipped them in that final game. All right, let's go to the Rose Bowl. I mean, look, you mentioned it before. Arguably, I wouldn't argue. I think it is the two best teams in the country now with the injuries to Georgia. Ohio State and Oregon in the Rose Bowl, the best setting there is for a college football game on New Year's Day. The Buckeyes, the 8th seed, favored. I can't wait for traditional media to say upset if Ohio State wins the game.
Oh, yeah.
Which I know will be coming a lot. 2.5, Bear, it's right on what I thought it was going to be. And this is a pretty difficult handicap with how good these teams have been when they've been at their best this year.
Yeah, and you'll have no reason to worry with Chris Fowler on the call. I'm sure he will say
correct.
Oregon ranked number 1, but the underdog in this game. He will he pays attention to such things, so he'll nail it. So that'll be good. I'm in a tough spot here because in terms of the side, because I have Ohio State. I have that Ohio State and Georgia versus the field ticket with you, Chrissy. So do I take Oregon plus the 2.5 here and hope maybe to be able to get off of that a little bit, or maybe Ohio State wins by 2 and I'm still alive for both. Like the number doesn't surprise me. I think what we saw from Ohio State last week was what we thought we'd see from Ohio State against Michigan. I think Chip Kelly and Ryan Day finally said enough's enough and we're going to go out there and do that. However, I feel like I'm like the no fun police here. Like I'm going to go under 55.5 because I think you look at the first meeting, Jordan Birch didn't play for Oregon, one of their better defensive players. Since that game, Ohio State kind of changed things up schematically on the defensive side of the ball, and their defense has been much better, much dominant. I don't think they're going to allow Dylan Gabriel to run as much. I don't think the receivers will have as much success against the Ohio State secondary as they did in the first meeting. On the flip side, I think Oregon's secondary is very good as well. I mean, Jeremiah Smith had a couple of big plays in that game, but it was 32-31, I think. As good as everything went for the offenses in that game, 63. So you're looking basically at one score. I know you're in a game that's basically a toss-up type game, and you got to always worry about overtime. But under 55.5 might be the way I attack this game. Maybe I can wait it out a few more days. Maybe it'll hit 56, and again, I'll get a little bit more bang for my buck. But I would lean towards under. I think Ohio State's the better team, but again, I'm in a tough spot because of my previous bias and the previous bets that I have.
Well, I think you and I texted after last week, and I told you I thought Ohio State should be 3. I saw it open 1. I tried to stay ahead of the pace, and I'm open at 1.5. I saw everybody go to 1.5. I went to 2. And I saw it moving up. I said, the hell with it. I'm going to go to 3 and get a bet. And I did. I got a bet at 3. But I still think that was the right number. I think Ohio State 3 is the right number. But also, to your point, and I think a couple of us on this panel would say it, I think these are the 2 best teams in the country.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
1 and 2, yeah.
I wish this was going to be the final game. And we saw earlier in the year back in, was it October or September, one of the best games of the year, you know, and I think these two teams are very evenly matched. Although I do think just Ohio State is a field goal better. And I think they deserve to be a 3-point favorite. Although, I mean, that shouldn't be much of a knock on Oregon. Anyway, I'm looking forward to a great game.
Incredible day.
I mean, you know, like I made it 3, the number's 2.5. I mean, well, that's cutting it pretty close. But I am rooting for Bear for that Georgia-Ohio State.
Thank you.
If we can get that in the final, I'm looking pretty good in the future. So that's always nice to go into those kind of games with something in your back pocket. I like that.
Credit the Buckeyes for really overcoming the Michigan game, right, and making a statement last week. And, here they are in a position now to keep moving forward. You can call it a little bit of revenge for what happened earlier this year. I guess there's some of that. But I think this is going to be a great game. I do think that I don't know if we'll hit 3 again, but I do think this total will continue to go up because I think I think the public loves both of these offenses. So I wouldn't be surprised if the fact that we're up 3 points on this game already, and professionals will wait to go under an even higher number.
Should be an awesome one.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah,
there you go, Bear.
They're the exactas left on the board.
I got the
you got the updated there as well. Again, you could say, boy, if we got a Penn State Ohio State final, I don't know how I feel about that, even though that is one of the shorter numbers on the board.
I know how I feel about it.
Well, I know. I think it'd be like the points of the Buckeyes, whatever the number is for the most part. But oh boy, if that was the final, that would be very interesting if we got it. I'll just say this on this game. I'm going to wait till I want to see if I get a 3. Obviously, I don't think we will.
I think you will.
If we do,
I think you will.
If we do, is it a don't blink situation, Vincenzo?
Don't blink. Why wait?
Why wait?
No,
I say don't wait. That's
It already left once,
Yeah.
right? It was there once, and
I think
it didn't last long.
Yeah.
This whole game comes down to Will Howard. That's as simple as, at least for me. If Will Howard plays well, Ohio State wins. If Howard makes one critical error, that might be enough to tilt the scales completely on Oregon. All right, now to the game that I actually, as great as this one is, I am so intrigued by the Sugar Bowl. With Georgia and Notre Dame, Gunnar Stockton, we saw you in the SEC title game. Now it's all your stage. No Carson Beck. His season's done with the Tommy John surgery. So it's all on young Mr. Stockton against a Notre Dame team that looked, again, against I know we had the conversation. Everyone's had the conversation with Indiana over the last 10 days. They smoked a good Big Ten team. I don't care what anyone had to say. And that game wasn't really even competitive, whatever the final score says. This is, Bear, an unbelievable game to me. It's 1.5 with Georgia, total 44. I'm riding with all these Notre Dame futures right now, so I'd love to see Notre Dame get the win. But what a game this is going to be to wrap up these quarterfinals.
It's funny because there's a lot of Notre Dame sentiment out there, and I there are a couple of guys who I kind of talk to regularly, just with my thoughts, and I said to the first gentleman who is very familiar with Georgia and he's seen them a lot and he's covered them and been around their practices for the last couple of years, and I said, boy, a lot of people are on Notre Dame in this game, and he said. He goes, really? He goes, look, obviously it doesn't mean he's going to go out and play well, but I've seen Gunnar Stockton the last 2 years throw against star ones in practice, and he can play, and he can throw it. So we'll see if that can translate to, after a month of practice with the ones, after getting thrown into action in the SEC championship game, how that translates against a really good Notre Dame defense, really good Notre Dame secondary that unfortunately had an injury in the first round against Indiana. So his thought was Georgia really wouldn't be super affected by that loss. And then there's another guy who covers both teams and covers the sport. He's familiar with our line of work and hobby, whatever you want to call it, as well. And I said the same thing to him. I said, a lot of people like Notre Dame in this game. And he said, really? He goes, that's kind of surprising to me because right now with Stockton at quarterback and with Riley Leonard running quarterback, he's like, both teams are kind of built the same way and play the same way, but Georgia just has better players. So he goes, that surprises me. A lot of people like Notre Dame. So after kind of taking their two opinions, I was like, you know what? Those two guys like Georgia. You know what? I'm not even going to worry about the 1.5. I'm just going to play Georgia in the cheap money line.
Yeah. Well, I kind of hope you're right. besides the futures, they have bet me Notre Dame. Now I went up. They bet me up. I opened 1. They bet me -1. They bet me -1.5. I went to 2. Took a pretty sizable bet plus a 2 So I'm back. I'm at 1.5 now, right, Jeff? Is that what I'm at? Right?
You're 1.5. Yep.
1.5
Yep.
and a quarter on the money line.
A quarter on the money line?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So right now, I mean, if they play right now, which obviously they don't, if they play right now, I need Georgia. And I've kind of heard some of the same things. Probably heard some of it from Bear about the quarterback, But let's stop and think for a second. If you got recruited by Georgia, you were probably pretty damn good.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, I'd say it's a pretty good shot. And Kirby's the one coach in here now that has a championship ring, and I don't know. I think right now that I give Georgia, a little bit of a lead here as far as I would agree with what Bear's saying. They're playing a very similar type team, but Georgia just has more horses than a very good Notre Dame team. But I think enough to carry the day here.
Best Notre Dame team in a long time. I think more physical and more like like an SEC team or a Big Ten team. But the fact of the matter is, there's another factor here in Georgia's favor. It's pedigree. I mean, you're talking about the defending champs, right? Everybody's talking about the Chiefs looking to three-peat. Nobody's talking about the recent success of
3 out of 4 with the title this year.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
3.
Yeah.
So this is a similar situation. Now, I often talk about time of day, time of the game, right? When you look at this game, and we got a terrific NFL schedule tomorrow as well. We got 3 games in the NFL tomorrow. You talk about carryover is going to come into play here. I think there's going to be carryover to both sides. So I don't think there's going to be this massive shift in this number. But there is going to be, I think, carryover support for both of these teams here. So for us, it's about writing tickets and writing business.
Bear, you said something that really stood out to me there, and it's part of the reason I actually like this game under the 44. You're dealing with very similar styled quarterbacks now. They aren't elite throwers, but they are, for their ability with their legs makes them again, we're still an unknown with Stockton, but what has made Riley Leonard into a really good college quarterback is the ability with his legs. And you mentioned it. You have 2 very high-end defenses playing a similar style quarterback. I think that screams that this game gets played in the teens more likely than not, that this is one of those smack mouth games.
Clock keeps moving.
Yeah, exactly, Vinny. Clock moving games. But boy, it really feels like to me, guys, that the winner of this game is the representative from the bottom of the bracket.
Agreed.
Against the winner of the Rose Bowl. To me, I know Texas right now is the betting favorite to win it all because they have a much easier quarterfinal game.
Yeah, that's the path you have to look at.
But I really do feel like the winner of the Rose Bowl is going to play the winner of the Sugar Bowl in Atlanta on the 20th. That's really where I'm at this point.
Well, I would tell you this, too. If you look at the total, it's the lowest total on the board. And 44 anymore is a pretty low total for college football.
Who's your friend that bets the lowest total on the board under and the
Barry
highest?
Phillips.
This is Barry. Okay.
Phillips,
The highest total over and the lowest total under.
And I always tell Barry, we're aware of the numbers, too, Barry.
That's because he's a golfer. He loves unders. He likes low numbers.
Well, that's the one sport that's good there, right? That's the.
He's a good golfer too.
He is a good golfer. Yeah.
So, Bear, before we let you go, I'm just curious on the non-playoff games, real quick. I know we talked about that in-game bet earlier, but how the heck do you handle these games, as we were talking about earlier, from your bettor's perspective? I mean, especially tomorrow, where it looks like, hey, Cam Ward's slated to play for Miami tomorrow.
Yeah.
Shador Sanders and Travis Hunter are slated to play for Colorado tomorrow. We actually have some of these bigger names as opposed to what we've seen the rest of this bowl season, where it's like, I don't know who's starting a quarterback for Pitt until 20 minutes before the game yesterday.
Yeah, it's hard because you got to play amateur psychologist as well. We're like, who do you think is going to be motivated to play? And a lot of times, you need to see a drive or two to try and figure something out. But we were talking about before how these line moves have been ridiculous, and people are taking bad numbers and still winning. I think the question with like Shadur and Travis Hunter and Cam Ward are not that are they going to start, are they going to play? It's how long are they going to play? Like, I don't think Xavier Restrepo was playing, Miami's best wide receiver. They had Zay Horton go into the portal as well. So they're going to be down a couple of wide receivers. And again, is this a situation where Cam Ward plays a quarter and a half? They give him a standing O on the way out. Thanks for everything this year. And they turn it over to Emory Williams, who right now will be in competition for the starting quarterback job next year. So that's a hard game for me to play. Like, the only two games moving forward of the non-college football playoff games that I have played and have action right now. I bet Ole Miss minus 14.5. I don't know what the number is right now. I saw in my circa Friday football invitational of 17.5. There you go.
It's 17. Yep.
17, I think, yeah.
Late 17. But it was like the biggest reason was all their guys are playing, with the exception of Trey Harris, the wide receiver. And Lane Kiffin probably has the tweet in his drafts right now, SMU 28, Duke 27, and he wants to throw up there right after the game, Ole Miss 58, Duke 12, or whatever the final score would kind of be like, yeah, really, SMU's better than us. So I have that, and I took Washington plus 2.5 against Louisville in the Sun Bowl. You got Tyler Shuck, the Louisville quarterback, out. Corey Brooks, their best wide receivers, out. They got a couple of key defensive starters out. And I think to cap off year one under Jed Fish, I think UW is probably a little bit more invested, a little bit more motivated to go out there and win this game. They weren't expected to do much this year. If they can go out and end the season with a bowl win over Louisville, I think that would be a successful season for Jed Fish and the Huskies. So, UW plus 2.5. And unfortunately, I feel like I'm past posting there with Ole Miss minus 14.5. But yeah, you could probably lay 17. If it lands 15 or 16, so be it.
Yeah, who cares? You probably lay 38 with
exactly. Yeah, I said it was going to be 58-12, so go ahead and let 30.
Bear, are you in a hurry, Bear? Because I have another question, a little bit off target here.
What's up?
Okay, Jim Larinaga, and this is from your school, Miami.
Yep.
And he cited the reason. Bear, it seems like something has to be done with all this stuff. I mean, you're as close to the college game, football, basketball, as anybody. Do you have a solution for this sort of thing?
Yeah, it needs to be collectively bargained, and these student athletes need to be officially employees. I think that's the only way this is going to change. My biggest issue with this right now is just going to 3 and 4 schools. If you want, you go fine. You want to transfer, you're allowed one free transfer. Go ahead. You go somewhere. Either it's not the experience you were looking for, you're not playing. Maybe you and the coaching staff or your teammates aren't hitting it off. You made a mistake. You want to correct the mistake and go to whoever else. Fine. You get one. The next one, you got to sit out a year, or you need to pay something back, or there has to be some sort of accountability, because you just can't keep transferring every single year. And I think when Norchad Omeyer transferred from Miami after the Final Four run, I really think that kind of hit Jim Larinaga like right between the eyes. Like, you got to be kidding me. But until this is collectively bargained and players are officially employees, you're going to continue to see these outlandish sums of money being thrown his way. Look, it's not a coincidence that in the span of 2 years, we've seen Roy Williams, Coach K, Jay Wright,
yeah,
Tony Bennett,
exactly.
Yeah.
Bear, just for anybody that's not following it, quickly, just tell everybody what happened there with Larinaga, because I know that is your old school.
Yeah, no, he just look. I think the school of thought was that this was going to be his last year anyway, but he essentially just said, "I can't do the job anymore. That I am not the best man to coach Miami moving forward in this era with what it's turned out." At the same time, their best team when they made the Final Four was an NIL type based team. But now a couple of years later, with the changes and conference expansion, he just basically said, I can't do it anymore. I'm not the right man. I'm not the best man. So he just decided to retire and turn the reins over right now to an assistant, and we'll see what Miami does moving forward. But just like with anything, like business and society, there's going to be a change. There's going to be a shift. So maybe now you're going to see a younger generation head coach who's more of a businessman, recruiter, and he's got assistants who are more of the tacticians and basketball minds. And maybe that's just the next general evolution of the sport. But it's a shame that these guys who Jim Larinaga took George Mason and Miami to the final.
Yeah.
That's like build a statue, name a court after the type of guy.
I mean, in my opinion, here there's a bigger issue, and it's going to be, a collective bargaining agreement is part of it, but there has to be a situation where there's not, a bidding war on every because in essence every player is a free agent now.
Yeah. So
it has to incorporate a CBA as well as a listen. Forget this open season on players everywhere. There's a bigger issue here, and I'm going to sound like a dad here, right? Because I am. But the thing about it is, what are we teaching these folks in society? Now, you're going to go to a job, and you're probably going to be under contract. And guess what? Whether you are or not, it's not like people are going to be jumping to get you every single year or every month to start changing. There's got to be some accountability. There's got to be, you know what? You're having a rough time. Yeah, right? Because not all of it is just getting outbid. It's like, I'm not playing enough. Well, let me tell you something. Every sport has showcases. Whether it's baseball, basketball, football, all-star games, college, soccer, whatever. You go for showcases. And guess what? Every coach there, while they're recruiting you, they're recruiting your replacement. That's life. What are you doing in terms of overcoming adversity? Get better. Okay, so it's a both a sports issue, but I think its impact in society is going to have a ripple effect on people in the real world and in the job market. So that was my speech for the day.
It's okay.
People want it, and people want it right now. And if a little bit of adversity, there's a lot of people. That's what makes the special ones special and the great ones great. That they respond to adversity and they're willing to work, and they're not gonna throw in the towel at the first signs of things going wrong. So I agree with you, Vinny.
How about the kid from Penn State? And I'm terrible with the names. The backup quarterback.
Hey, Drew Pabula.
They're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, I listen. I know Aller's been a workhorse and an Iron Man and all that. Doesn't figure to get hurt, but who knows? He can get hurt, and then I don't even know who the third string quarterback is. I have no idea.
That was part of what we talked about with the SMU game. If Aller were to go down, I will say good gain for my alma mater with Pabula, but that's a different discussion for a different time. Bear was kind of stunned after Miller Moss picked Louisville, but whatever. I'm actually happier with Pabula, but that's a different discussion for a different time.
Jeff Parles has done some wonders with quarterbacks. Yeah. It's a good place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. He's Chris Fallica, Bear Bets Podcast, Fox Sports. The best when it comes to college football handicap.
But I can talk to Bear for another 2 hours. We'll wait till dinner. We'll wait till dinner, Bear, and then we'll save a lot of it for that dinner.
Yeah, we got some lamb chops for him. So Bear, pleasure as always. We'll talk again soon.
Happy New Year, Bear.
Happy New Year.
Yes, sir.
Great talking to you.
Chris Fallica, everyone. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll have more in the college football playoff games and. We think Jimmy Vaccaro will be here.
Around.
We think he'll be here in a few minutes as well. When we get back, Sports by the Book Football Frenzy on a Friday.
If you're celebrating a special occasion or just love fine dining, you're in the right place. Come experience the crown jewel of South Point restaurants, Michael's Gourmet Room.
Welcome.
With over 600 different types of wines and magnificent dishes prepared tableside, you'll revel in the rich classic Vegas decor and the best black tie service in the world. This intimate gourmet room has earned accolades galore. Come to Michael's Gourmet Room for an unforgettable dining experience. Another famous restaurant is the Silverado Steakhouse, where you'll find the charm and service that discerning patrons require. From top quality steaks and chops to fresh seafood and desserts, you'll love the award-winning wine list and menu at Silverado Steakhouse. Steak lovers have even more options with primarily prime rib. Catering to hearty appetites, the menu features a variety of flavorful prime rib cuts, dry-aged to ensure tenderness, and then seasoned and slowly roasted. Although prime rib is our specialty, it's not the only thing on the menu. There's something for everyone. And if you're craving a taste of Italy, come experience delicious Italian cuisine and the attentive service at Don Vito's. Our culinary team starts with the freshest ingredients and transforms them into traditional favorites. And don't forget Italian desserts. Don Vito's. Savor the taste of Italy. Finally, if sushi is more your style, join us at the popular Zenshin Asian restaurant and sushi bar, where we're serving up the freshest sashimi, nigiri, and sushi rolls. And beyond the sushi, an exciting contemporary Asian cuisine menu, plus a variety of specialty drinks, Japanese and domestic beer, wine, and sake. Balance your hunger with Zenshin.
Again, it's Football Frenzy on Sports by the Book here on a Friday. I'm Jeff Parles. Chris Andrews is here. Vinny Magliulo, Jimmy Vaccaro to my left. Real quick here, I just want to bring this up because it's been circulating on social media. One of the best studio hosts / play-by-play guys to ever do it, Greg Gumbel, passed away at the age of 78 after a battle with cancer. The voice of the NCAA tournament selection show for all these years. Yep. He's the one who revealed the bracket. He obviously called a few Super Bowls as well at CBS. One of the best to ever do it, Chris.
Smooth, easy way of talking. Told you what was happening in the game. Wasn't talking down to you. You know, I thought he really was one of the best. I always appreciated listening to him.
Let it flow. I can't imagine getting the pairings on Selection Sunday with another voice. Wow.
Let's. There's no artful way to segue into it. Let's bring Jimmy in now. Jimmy, how was your Christmas? First off, you have a good Christmas?
No, nobody got me anything.
No one got.
What's so funny? Did you get something?
No, I'm
you
guilty.
Got a stocking back
I'm
there.
guilty.
I got you at least something.
Okay.
You got to check it. There's no cold in it.
There were everyone's stockings back there, right?
Yeah. 40 of them.
40 of them. That's a lot of stockings.
That's a lot of. Yeah.
That's a lot. So
What'd you get?
What did I get?
Yeah.
My Christmas was a little bit different this year. My wife and I moved into our first home last week.
Well,
So thank you very much. So
I got it till it's June 1st. She throws you out.
okay, I'll take the over.
How you been?
I'm good. I mean, it was a good week, and Jimmy, this is a great time of year, right?
Yeah, let me run this by because I was thinking as I was coming up on the show like 20 minutes ago, and I'm looking around, and you want to say to yourself, boy, things have changed. Even like with the the racing sports industry in general, it's a business. I try to tell people out there it's a business. Sometimes you see us changing things. Sometimes we take them off. Sometimes we add them. Sometimes we do a lot of different things. It's never, ever stagnant. When we first came to town, it was like a rubber stamp. Everybody did the thing the same way. And now it's a competitive industry where you try to be the one you're thinking first. And here's the biggest thing, and these two would know, you weren't even born yet when I'm talking about this. Way back when, and I'll say, 25 years ago, like right now, I mean, the joint's jammed again. Mm-hmm. There was a time when this time limit from like 10 days, from like right before Christmas to right after the new year, it is not like that anymore. There was nobody in these joints 10 minutes after Christmas until New Year's. And then what had happened, like everything else, as I just said, you adjust. You talk about what else can happen. You know, it was like Michael Gaughan was sitting with us a little earlier today, and he was saying he hated to do it because there was nobody in the joint, but that meant 10 days of people not getting paid, just staying around the house and doing nothing. So like out there, when you ask a question, if it's a legitimate one, we can give you why it was so much different. And you know what? It's like everything else. It's going to keep changing. the culture of what we do, people just want to keep changing. Now these two, and you're learning too, because no, I say it in a nice way. You see, like you go to a different joint, it's a different thing. Everybody's trying to do things, and this is the one that, like Michael Gaughan, I always go back and it just hits me all the time. We're in a coffee shop at the Royal Inn. That was Michael Gaughan's first casino, which was between the Stardust and the Hilton. So the guy's a genius, thinking of what to do. So we were down there, and then he was talking, and all of a sudden, bang. He was the first one to have a 24-hour sports book.
Mm-hmm.
You know what his thought process was? I'll never forget it. Just like he said, the joint's open 24 hours a day everywhere. Right. Why would you be closed in the sports book? Bang, it hit. And that's how things get changed. Like the 24-hour sports book. It was Michael's idea. And Chris, and you guys both were part of that also.
Yeah. I worked at Graveyard. That was my first job when I went over to the Barbary. I was on Graveyard. You know, that was the opening, so I took it. It was good.
And he
worked out okay, I would say.
He realized too it was a 24-hour town with 3 shifts,
right?
And part of that benefit was anybody getting off on, if you were getting off on swing shift or Graveyard, you had a place to go to get to hang out and get down. So
and give credit where credit is due. Yeah. When we did the contest here, we were actually second by a month or two. Sonny Reisner was the first one at the Castaways. But remember, he had point spreads on his contest. Yes. We had just picking the winner. But it was a monster. Yeah. It was an absolute monster.
Pick the pros.
Then we jumped in, right behind it. And then obviously from that, now we have Circa giving away $1 million for whatever it is.
Many millions.
And that's there do we go. Where do we go from here? You know what? Just hang around. Something will pop up.
Sure.
Very good, Jimmy. Yeah, for sure. Oh, by the way, how many bowl games did we have back then, Jimmy? Like, 2 on the eve and 6 on the day?
Yeah.
I
don't think we had about eight games.
That was it.
The Blue Bonnet Bowl.
Right? You had the sugar, the rose, the rose. And the Rose Bowl kind of tied everything together.
We listened. For the first time, we, as an industry, listened. There was a lot of times where we're like, hey, don't question that. I'm telling you, I said to do it. And you would think, this guy's a nutcase. He ain't got a clue. But we sifted through all of that. We kept and kept polishing off the ones we thought of. And here we are today. And it's much different than it was. And I'll say this is Jimmy's. You two have your own, maybe you want to look at it differently. The sports books are creeping, but not as fast as I thought they would be, only because there's a lot of else going on with the other casinos.
What do you mean
the stuff
creeping?
That they do. So, but we're going to be here. We're going to keep doing more and more things. The reason we do more and more is because more people show up, more people bet money and whatever. Then you go from there.
Well, I'm interested to see what's going to happen next because there is a lot of flux in the business right now.
Yeah.
Stay steady.
Yeah, that's
the best. Consistent.
A lot of these guys are getting fluxed out of their accounts too if they win a couple games or two. So.
Yeah, no, it's been what? How many years has it been now since the Supreme Court? It's been 8 years now, right?
PASPA
was overturned in 18.
Wow.
Yeah, so 6 and a half.
It's going to be 7 years.
It's going to be 7 years in May, right?
Yeah.
Spring.
2.
Yeah.
I said 3 the other day.
Yeah.
I said, Jimmy, you guys been around
2018.
about 3 days.
Yeah. No, it's a whole different world, that's for sure.
All right, guys, go back to work.
Jimmy, always a pleasure. Happy New Year, Jimmy.
Same to you.
Jimmy Vaccaro, everyone. We'll see Jimmy walk across the set as he always does.
For at least you was going to leave me a gift. No.
Check your stocking.
See you, Jimmy. Jimmy Vaccaro, everyone. All right, real quick, guys. We went through it for 40 minutes with the bear, on the bear. I just want to ask you guys about the 4 quarterfinal games because again, this is the first go around of this 12-team format. Normally, these would be the semifinal games that we would have, but. Look, I mean, we're already seeing good action on these games, especially that Ohio State-Oregon game where you guys opened at 1 and they bet it up.
Yeah, good action everywhere.
Yeah, but this is Vinny always mentions the beginning of the fuse, which, by the way, great start to the week last night with whatever that was. With the Bears and the Seahawks.
Because 6-3 was a thing of beauty for us. So,
Again, Ryan McCormick and I were texting along the whole game. We cannot share those texts on the air.
Yeah, I know. Poor
Well, he's a
Ryan.
Bears fan. I mean, how could he? Don't put him in that spot.
I will
You
say,
know what? I blame your father, Ryan, for don't you laugh, young Vinny. You had the old man turn you on to the Jets.
Look, my mom has said that the cruelest thing my dad ever did to me was make me a Jet fan as opposed to a Giant fan, which is not good right now.
No,
but
right.
at least would have at least seen a few Super Bowl titles in my life.
Yeah.
Someday we'll laugh.
But someday, Vinny,
I don't know.
Someday,
I don't
hopefully,
know. It might be from the clouds. But
I was going to say, hopefully it's before either of us are in the ground. But
It might be that maniacal scream of a guy in a padded cell.
But look, this is, I mean, Chris, this New Year's Eve, New Year's Day is always they're always amazing college football days to begin with, but New Year's Day is just a different level this year with these three playoff games.
I can't wait.
I will say I'm very intrigued by that Arizona State-Texas game to see if it gets back to that 14 because it'd be interesting to see.
I'd like your chances.
This could be one of those number takes for sure.
I would, we were talking about, the bowl games traditionally, right? The traditional bowl games, if you will, but pre these playoffs, right? What they were like on New Year's. And New Year's was always very busy. But you're talking about 4 games that are, from a betting perspective, right, Chris?
Yeah.
They're NFL playoff games for all intents and purposes. That's how folks bet them, and that's how we booked them. So I think that the fact, and then you've got don't forget there's carryover with everything that started this Wednesday, because we did have 2 games on Christmas Eve in the NFL and a game on Christmas Day. Then we had the game last night. So that fuse I always talk about on Thursday. Let me tell you something. It's more like a Minuteman missile, I think, these days with everything rolling over. As busy as last weekend was, I think this week is certainly going to rival it. And don't forget, with over 300,000, 350,000 people in town, it's certainly going to add to it. So it's a great time to be here in Las Vegas. A great time for us to be in the business.
It's going to be amazing. I can't wait for New Year's Day. And you know what? With what the Bears said, I really have a hard time seeing Boise State staying in this game against Penn State. But, boy, we've seen Boise State against high odds win in that building before. In that Fiesta Bowl, obviously, one of the
big bet on them
against Oklahoma.
I mean, that's one of the most memorable games in college football history. The Statue of Liberty game.
I remember taking 8.
Yeah.
And I'm watching, and that's, well, if it goes into overtime, at least I got a winner there. And then they do the stats as all. I've been pulling for them for the last 3 hours. I hope they could pull this one off.
Well, I mean, the hook and ladder at the end of regulation to force overtime, and then the Statue of Liberty to win it with Ian Johnson running it in. Again, the game was in 2007. I mean, I remember that game like it was 3 days ago, basically. See, that's what great college football games can do. But if we can get anything close to that level, that would be pretty darn good in Arizona less than a week from now. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we get back, we'll shift gears to the NFL. A very weird schedule this week because the 3 games already off the board. We got 3 tomorrow, and then we barely have any games on Sunday this week. We'll break them all down when we get back. Sports by the Book, Football Frenzy, hour number 2 coming your way next.
We have 11 amazing restaurants featuring a wide variety for every price range and appetite. South Point's Garden Buffet has something for everyone at unbeatable prices. Or if hunger strikes in the middle of the night, join us at Coronado Cafe. The American menu offers breakfast, lunch, or dinner 24 hours a day, plus a Chinese kitchen for authentic Chinese dishes from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. From steak and eggs to wonton soup, it's fast and friendly service 24/7. When you need a quick pick-me-up, you can find it at our state-of-the-art Starbucks just inside the main South Point entrance. Order ahead with the Starbucks app for easy mobile order pickups. Or enjoy your favorites in the relaxing dining area anytime, day or night. If you love Mexican food, Baja Miguel's has all of your south-of-the-border favorites. There are dozens of classics to choose from, like fajitas, ceviche, chimichangas, tacos, and more. And for spirit lovers, Baja's colorful non-smoking tequila bar is right outside.
back in. It's Sports by the Book Football Frenzy here on a Friday, the final Friday of 2024. How about that? Blink your eyes, and we're already into the round of 8 in the college football playoff and week 18 in the NFL. And also it's bowl season. And you know what bowl season means here at the South Point? The $25,000 $5 parlay jackpot card for 15 college bowl games. Pretty nice sized overlay right now. So you're never going to see overlays like this. So
you will never see an overlay like this again, I don't think.
So go ahead. Make sure you come here to the South Point. Go visit Dwayne Colucci at the Rampart.
Even if you're in Mesquite.
If you're driving from Utah through Mesquite, Virgin River, and Casablanca, go get them in. Go get them in before tomorrow. Tomorrow at 12:30.
10 cards, $50. You have a great. It's a monster overlay. Like I say, you're never going to get this again. Probably in any casino game, at least not that I know of. And I don't know that much about the casino except for sportsbook. But I don't think you're going to get that kind of overlay anywhere.
Well, we're all ready to go. I know Ryan got the stack for stocking stuffers already. So we're already good to go on that. All right. Let's go to the NFL. We start with 3 Saturday games. And tomorrow is really actually an underratedly fun day. College hoops back tomorrow after a few days off. The bowl games, even though again it's to take a fun word here, a little bit fakakta with the bowl games, as we know. Shout out Gil Alexander on that one.
Yeah. We got a big bowl slate.
Yeah, huge bowl slate tomorrow. Again, I don't know how bettable all those games are. Starting with the game at Fenway tomorrow with UConn and UNC.
I won't be here for the 8 o'clock start.
Yeah, Alex and I will barely be here for that. Okay. We'll be starting at the same time as UConn and UNC, but we'll get.
I will be here for the Army start at 6:15.
So let's go to the NFL. Army playing La Tech because Marshall didn't even bother to show up there in Shreveport.
Unbelievable.
So let's go to the NFL, though. Let's start in Foxborough. The Chargers, with a win, are into the postseason in year 1 in Jim Harbaugh, which, again, we kind of talked about it during the offseason. I can't remember a team improving this much in one offseason from one head coach to another, from Brandon Staley to Jim Harbaugh. And look, the Chargers, it hasn't been perfect. Has been far from perfect, but
I think Ryan McCormick's waiting to dispute you on that next year.
Well, let's see who the Bears have. Let's see what happens with the Bears first.
If the Bears screw it up again, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see what happens there.
Torturing the man.
But Chris, the bettors initially took the dog here from 5.5 to 4. Now a little bit of a climb back to 4.5 on this game. I say it every single week about Drake May. Other than that horrible decision last week that cost New England points and, quite frankly, actually cost them a reasonable shot to pull off the upset in Buffalo last week.
They had a big shot.
I mean, they were in total command until that turnover in there from May. Drake May's been really good with a team, again, limited offensive line talent, basically no skill position players, a head coach that is seemingly in over his head in Gerard Mayo. And Drake May is only impressed. For this game, I don't love taking not the best of the number, but at 4.5, I think this would only be a take on the Patriots in this game against the Chargers.
Well, I mentioned May. I mean, the two things that are most important to an NFL quarterback, processing and accuracy. And it's hard to judge that in college because, first of all, processing is a whole different thing in the NFL as compared to college. And in the pros, guys don't get open that much, except for Jason Kelce, who the Steelers never bothered. Travis Kelce, who the Steelers never bothered to cover the other day. But mostly, you just have to throw the ball, in a tiny little hole, and he's been able to do that, but without skill position players. I think the New England franchise in the future. I don't know if Gerard Mayo is the guy or not, but I do know Robert Kraft has been a very good owner and very progressive, and I think. Again, like I say a lot, these guys need to be surrounded by good assistant coaches, and they need to go out and get good assistants for Mayo. So I think, to your point, he may be in a little bit over his head, but you may have to get some quality assistance to help him overcome that. And I think they can, but of course now they have to make the right moves. But I do believe in Drake May. I think this kid, I didn't see him much in college. I just never really had a chance to watch that many games of his, but he's very impressive to me.
This you got a tale of two franchises, right? When we knew that the Patriots were going to be in rebuild mode. I think Harbaugh's first go-around in the NFL has also helped make this transition from Michigan to Los Angeles easier. Let's face it, right? A lot more experience. But look, at the end of the day, we're probably going to need the home team here. They haven't just gobbled up the 4.5 yet again, so more of a likelihood this game goes up again. Yeah. Maybe get closer to the opening number. And I think a lot, some of it is, just like I said, there's been carryover all week so far, and carryover with the favorites, and I think it's going to continue.
The very, very interesting game to start off the Saturday triple-header. Again, Chargers win, they're in. And look,
put pressure on the Broncos too, right, Jeff?
Well, more so than anything. I know this might sound a little bit funky, but the way the Steelers are going right now, the Chargers win out and the Steelers lose Week 18. Chargers get the 5 seed instead of Pittsburgh, which after what we saw on Christmas Day, there is at least 4-1 round. A humongous difference between having to go into Baltimore in that first round of the playoffs and being a road favorite in Houston, more likely than not, regardless of it's Pittsburgh or the Chargers at this rate, especially with what has gone on with the Texans, who, boy, not pretty. Somehow not a scoregami, as we found out earlier in the day, Chris.
Well, I mentioned it during the earlier show. I did a little work this morning just looking at some of these teams, and, surprised that Houston, they've dropped considerably in the last month, I would say.
Yeah, it's been pretty ugly. Again, Texans end their season with the Titans next week, but they might not even play their guys. They're locked.
Who knows? Yeah,
they're stuck in the 4 seed.
They're in the 4. Yeah.
They're stuck at this point, and yet again, probably playing that 4:30 Eastern game on Saturday in the first round of the playoffs. Yet again, the only playoff slot they've ever known in the wild card weekend for that franchise. All right, let's go to Cincy next. I think this is the best game. Well, the line says it's going to be the most competitive game of the 3 on Saturday, but this is what a contrast of styles we got in this game here with the Bengals hosting the Broncos. Bengals, we know, no defense whatsoever, an offense that has played at a level that if Cincy's defense was just bad as opposed to completely dreadful, the Bengals would be coasting to a playoff berth here in 2024. Instead, they need to win out and get a boatload of help in order to get in at this point. Denver has to win one of their last 2 to get to win number 10. That would get them into the postseason for the first time since they won Super Bowl 50. Kind of crazy that they've almost gone a whole decade without making the playoffs for that franchise that has been,
right?
Wow. Second longest drought in the NFL for the playoffs.
Wow, it doesn't seem that long.
Yeah, well, only the Jets have a longer drought, and that will be continuing yet again.
Today.
Yeah. So up to 3.5 on this game, Chris, because again, you guys only do business on -110 both sides. There's a lot of -20, -3 out there on Cincinnati right now. Boy, a Denver total of 50 really tells you what everyone thinks of that Cincinnati defense going into this one.
So let me understand this. If the Chargers win,
yes,
are the Broncos still need to play?
Well, the Broncos, if the Broncos are playing, remember, so with the extra playoff team, Denver needs to win one of the last 2.
So they're going to be in it regardless.
Oh, 100%. Okay. Yes, they need to win one of the last 2 because right now, if Denver loses out and one of Miami, Indy, or Cincinnati end up at the same record as the Broncos, any of those 3 teams would actually get in over Denver.
Whew. Okay.
Yeah. So
Steelers probably beat one of those teams.
The Steelers are already good. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I would say this, and I've been saying this for a while, and really, this was kind of like my Uncle Jack's theory, and you could do a lot worse than follow my Uncle Jack. In a playoff type situation, defense tends to trump offense. Now, I don't know if you'll find a bigger disparity between one team that can't play defense at all and one team that's primarily a defensive team. Although I got to give Peyton and Nick's credit for what they've done with this offense. They've maximized their profit, as Tony Soprano would say. But I gotta like Denver in this game, especially if you can get to the 3.5, and you'll find either 3.5 or 3 even money. I think you can find that right now, But I would say I would like Denver in this game, just because I think this is kind of translatable to a playoff game, because it's deep playoff implications for both teams, and in that regard, I think that Denver, I would think that defense should carry the day.
So Knicks struggled at the first month of the season.
Yeah. Yep.
Pretty consistent, but in the last few weeks, few more interceptions than we saw when he was running pretty good. I wonder about some internal issues with the Bengals when you watch just the interaction on the sidelines. It's not just competitive. There's issues there. But to Chris's point, yeah, defense does travel. Hey, listen, there's no secret here, right? We're not going to need a Cincinnati by 3 result. So the ultimate toggle. Yeah, you were dying to say it, and I knew you were. No, you
beat me to it, my friend.
I had to because I know it's coming. So, but that's what's happened. I mean, laying 3 with the Bengals and taking 3.5 with the Broncos. I think the total continues to go up. But I think right now the Broncos are tied with the Chargers, except the Chargers have a tiebreaker because of head-to-head.
So in
terms of positioning,
they're both 9-6, as you said.
Yeah.
The Chargers swept.
Yep.
So that's why the Chargers only have to win one more game.
Right.
And they're good. Chargers still could technically miss the playoffs, but I mean they play the Patriots and the Raiders the last 2 weeks. Yeah. That would be quite the collapse if they managed to miss. But again, the Broncos. Boy, do I say it? Yeah, I do.
Say it.
I think this thing lands 3. Sorry, guys.
Thank you.
I do like Denver plus the 3.5.
What are we going to do with the studio once we have to close it?
I do like the Broncos plus the points because of the reason you said. And I'm really monitoring the status of Riley Moss, the number 2 corner on Denver, where you've seen a nice size drop. As great as Surtain is, the guys behind him with no Moss have not been good. And you saw it in the second half against the Chargers, where the Chargers did whatever they wanted in offense in that game a Thursday ago. But if Moss is in, I actually think you might be okay, because I think Denver wins the game outright if Riley Moss plays. If he doesn't, I think this is a ginormous over game, even with the total moving up.
That's what I said. The total will continue to go up in this game.
50, where do you think we get to, Vinny? 50, 52?
52. Wouldn't shock me.
That's
51.5.
That's about as high as a non-Lion game at this point or a Bills game can go at this point in the NFL.
Yeah. But it wouldn't shock me.
Wouldn't shock me. I would bet it now then, even though it's not the best of it. All right. Rams win the NFC West. With 2 more wins. They could technically actually win it with a win tomorrow, plus a bunch of things that make it impossible for Seattle's strength of schedule to hop them. Yeah, very convoluted. But simplest case for the Rams to get into the postseason: beat the Arizona Cardinals, beat the Seahawks at home next week. You win the NFC West in a year that you were 1-4. The Rams were. This one's bounced all over the map. You opened 5.5. You got as high as 7. Right. You're at 6.5 now in LA with a total of 47.5 in this game.
Well, we didn't take much at 5.5. I moved it pretty quick up to 6, but they laid the 6. Went to 7 just because the guy bet me is double sharp. But then another sharp guy took the 7. So now I'm at 6.5. We're in pretty good business, but they are starting to lay the 6.5. So I think you might see a 7 again. Especially, as Vinny would tell you, this is last game of a rotation. And we got 3 pro games. We got a bunch of college games. So let's see how everything kind of lies. We'll do a what if on this game, and I think you might see a 7 if the numbers don't really come out in our favor.
I agree with Chrissy 100%. And Rams in the driver's seat. Jeff, you talked about how they started. They started the same way last year and went on a run and gave the Lions everything they could. They could have won that game, and that playoff game. So dangerous team, experienced team. This is first of all, a well-coached team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Secondly, a good balance of veterans when you look at the Stafford, under center. But you look at some really good youngsters as well, right? Their defensive, the defensive front is young and playing extremely well. Who's got a better receiving core? Tandem, right? When you think about it. So you put all those factors together, very dangerous team. And, peaking at the right time of year. So, but I think this number will continue to go up. And I'll tell you what, I know the total has come down, but I think it'll start to creep up again.
47.5
just because of these two teams and the way they play. And we know the Cardinals are going to, be up tempo. And if they're playing from behind, there's going to be a lot of passing. So you may even see some defensive scoring in this game.
Just throw this out there real quick. On the Arizona side of things, again, after they beat the Jets on November the 10th, they were 6-4. They were leading the division.
Yeah.
Since then, they're officially out. They can't make it. They've 1-4 since then, and they had some pretty brutal losses mixed in there. That game against Seattle that flipped on the pick six thrown by Kyler. The game they were in command in Minnesota the whole way until they weren't. Lost that game. Last week, they really kind of miraculously got the game to overtime against Carolina and then lose the game in overtime, and that's that for a Cardinal team that, again, weird one for them this year because they exceeded the win total.
Yeah.
They exceeded the win total. They were not supposed to be a real threat in the NFC West, and then they were. And then they weren't by the end of the year.
I still like that young coach Gaughan.
Yeah.
I think that kid's going to be around for a while. I've never liked Kyler Murray, but he has seemed to have figured out the best way to use Kyler Murray's talents, which he does have talent. There's no question about it. I just don't like a 5'8" run-around quarterback being a guy that's going to take you too far into the playoffs.
Let's go to Sunday, guys. Let's look at what a great game to start us off with. Well, this would have been the Manning Bowl about 15 years ago. Not so much anymore. The Colts and the Giants. It looks like Joe Flacco is going to get the ball for
Richardson is.
Didn't practice again today. Still questionable. Have the Giants even announced who's starting a quarterback for them this weekend? Because they're going under the guise that Locke is hurt, and that Locke has been just absolutely brutal. Could be.
Was he a first-round draft?
No, remember he fell into the second round. He was there in Nashville, and then Denver took him. Look, I don't. We've talked about the angle of tanking in the past on this. Guys are fighting for jobs, like all that stuff. I don't think I can ever remember a team tankfully as artfully as well as this Giant team has managed to tank, starting with the release of Daniel Jones from there. I mean, Chris, this is just a tolerance thing. Are you willing to lay over a touchdown on the road with Joe Flacco, who seems to be pretty much finished at this point? But you are going against a team that is completely as close to ever giving up for an NFL team at this point.
I was trying to remember a lower rated team. And I think the Cincinnati Bengals, I think they were getting 24 against a Steve Young 49er team. And I think that's the lowest rated, power rated team I've ever had. So the Giants at this point are off the hook. But we got a ways to go. Yeah,
even worse than those winless teams that were mixed in there. That
Detroit,
the winless Cleveland, the 2 years where Hugh Jackson won one game in 2 seasons.
1 game in 2 years. Yeah,
the Buccaneers with McKay, Chris.
Well, see, I wasn't doing my power ratings that way at that point. I had those teams a little more competitive. Like I said, that one Bengals team in, what am I looking at? 94-ish or something like that? 95 maybe? I have another story involving that, but it's going to be in the new book. But that's the lowest rated team I think I've ever had. And Giant team's getting damn close.
It's been brutal. It's been brutal to say the least. I mean, again, I didn't think going into the year, even if it went poorly, I still thought that Dable and Shane were going to be fine. Head coach and GM ain't surviving this. With how bad this has gone, coupled with the fact that Barkley's been as good as he's been in Philadelphia. I think this is a total regime change for the Giants who, I mean, lose twice. You get your pick of Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders at the number
Giants
one overall
and Jets,
pick.
both
Both clean
the
house.
stadium is going to.
So, you should really just rip up that stadium at this point.
Well, this Colts Giants game is not the 1958 title game, Chris.
No, no Unitas, no Don Amici.
Yeah, just a little bit of a different quality, right?
The greatest game ever played. A lot of folks.
Well, we are playing football in Yankee Stadium this week, though, guys. There's a bowl game this week.
Yeah. A toggler nonetheless. He took the 8 when we got there, but this number's only going to go up because I'll tell you, the Colts are going to be in every teaser, no matter who's under center. So, right? Let's face it. They're going to bet against the Giants on the money line and every which way they can. So, only going to go up.
Let's go to Sunday night next because it pops up next in the rotation numbers. Remember, late flex on this one. This is 413, 414 in your rotation numbers. So, yes, Sunday night game, but appears earlier on your cards if you're betting in. Washington hosting Atlanta. How much you just meant because the Falcons played the Giants last week? How much do we even take from that? Basically nothing on the Falcons end. Look, Commanders humongous win last week. Any way you slice it, basically putting them in a win-and-in scenario, and they're in the postseason in the year where they were supposed to do nothing with Jaden Daniels and Dan Quinn first time go around together for those two, obviously. But look. I know Jalen Hurts exited that game early with the concussion. We'll get to Philadelphia later. Hurts isn't going to play again this week. But the Commanders still had to do it against that Philly defense, and they did. Right. Yeah. Even with all the turnovers in that game, they found a way to win. A humongous win for them. This is 4 in this game, guys. There's a lot of 3.5 in the market. You guys are market high on this game, down from 4.5. Total bouncing around as well to 47 now.
Yeah, I'm not a strong player or anything, but I kind of like the Commanders here, I think, right now. And I think there's a lot of pluses going for them. And, I don't see a lot out of this Falcon team. I really don't. I see a lot of positives out of the Commanders. And I know some of the things that guys were saying about the Commanders is that, with Cliff Kingsbury, his offenses tend to tail off at the end of the year. That may be true, but their offense, I thought, came up with some pretty good plays last week against, I think, the best defense in the NFL. So I might toss that narrative out the window. Mm-hmm. And, I opened it a little high because I kind of like Washington. And now I guess I'm still at market high. Is that correct? I'm at 4. Everybody else is at 3.5. Yep. Yeah, so, I'm not really afraid to take a bet on Atlanta. And I think Washington is probably the right side here.
I have no problem with the Commanders going for us in this game, especially with what they took away from last. That's a huge boost last week, with the way they came back and won that game last week. And Falcons are going to need to show more than they did against the Giants last week. Now, listen, I know that, and we'll get to the Buccaneers in a few games here, because the Falcons have the advantage in terms of the head-to-head tiebreaker. But when you look at how the season plays out, how these next couple of games go, much more difficult a task, I think, before the Falcons than for the Buccaneers.
Atlanta, again, Tampa, we'll get to them in a little bit. Tampa's going to be a big favorite twice in these last 2 games, including this week. They're going to be over a touchdown in both games. Again, even with Carolina on deck for Atlanta next week, this is far and away the most difficult game between those two.
Carolina's playing a lot better.
Carolina's been very good as an underdog. That one game they lost was the game that Vinny said it didn't look right. And Vinny was right that it didn't look right in that game where Carolina's favored over Dallas. But boy, this is... I'm kind of with you, Chris. I kind of like the favorite. I mean, a rookie making his first road start, also in Penix. Amazingly, 2 top 10 picks from this year's draft, actually, in this game, because Penix is there.
Yeah, but he's a veteran rookie.
Yeah, look, he played well last week, but it was the Giants.
He played a lot as a in college. Too.
Well, I think you mentioned this again, Chris. Like, just look at all the experience, all these guys who are playing in the NFL right now. All of them. I mean, May was the least experienced of all of them in college, and he still was pretty experienced, all things considered. All right, let's go. Oh, boy. The game of the week. Raiders at Saints. There we go. Boy, Vinny, I said it to you a few weeks ago where the Jets were the kings of messing up their draft position. The Raiders have a chance to do back-to-back weeks of...
The king is dead. Long live the king.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just, again, it's the NFL. I get it. You're playing for jobs. I understand it. But the Raiders legitimately could end up losing 8 picks of draft capital with back-to-back wins, with winning last week and then winning this game here.
Favorites, by the way.
Yeah, by the way, forget favorites. Road favorites this week against New Orleans, who, by the way, I didn't realize this. New Orleans is the first team to be shut out this year in the NFL. I didn't realize that Monday was the first shutout in the league this year.
I think I heard that.
Yeah. I was surprised when I heard that as well. Looks like Rattler will start. Really, Saints have seen enough of Jay Kaner at this point. No Carr, no Kamara. Olave doubtful again, so their good offensive weapons aren't there. Total 37.5. I mean, this is just a brutal game all the way around. Aiden O'Connell will start again for the Raiders.
So Raiders are the favorite.
Yes.
My first thought, as soon as I looked at it, I said, wow, they're going from a home dog to a road favorite. They were favored last week, too.
Yep.
It's 2 weeks in a row. This team is favored. Just on principle, I would take the Saints. Like, how can the Raiders be a road favorite? I don't know. And meanwhile, what was Tennessee doing, firing Mike Vrabel?
Your guess is as good as mine, Chris.
I'm sure there's something going on. I love Mike Vrabel as a player, loved him as a coach. How this guy's looking for a job is just absurd to me.
He won't be. I don't think he'll be looking for a job after this summer.
Ryan
McCormick, or after this spring.
I think he'd be a great coach for the Chicago Bears. I really do.
He'd be a great coach for anyone that needs it right now. Again, if Ohio State loses to Oregon, if Ross Bjork does decide to listen to the quote-unquote lunatic fringe that Herb Street was going after last week, that Mike Vrabel could be in play there too. But Vinny, I mean, Chris just said it. I mean, this Raider team that legitimately was holding the #1 overall pick going in to last week is favored in back-to-back games in week 16 and 17. That, I mean, how many times did that happen, Chris? Like, almost never, right?
Yeah, I might strike almost from that sentence.
It's rare, no question about it.
It's the NFL in 2024 for you, right?
This is what we're looking at. And you know what? The difference is when you look at both these teams have interim coaches, right?
Yes.
Interim head coaches.
Yep. Rizzi Pierce isn't an interim, but was an interim last year, of course.
He's I think you
might not be the coach in 2 weeks anyway.
I'll tell you what, Rizzi's on firmer ground, to be honest with you, just from what I can see.
This is a brutal game. I wish we could go to a better game next, but we can't. I can't even say that.
Please, let's not talk about this one long either.
The Jags hosting the Titans. These two teams met about 3 weeks ago. The Jags won 10-6. Big difference in this game is that Mason Rudolph's going to play instead of Will Levis, who has been exiled from the quarterback position at this point for the Titans. Quite frankly, honestly, for their fan base as well. Might feel better about this. Chris, it's a pick and it's 39. I don't have any. I look. Some people would say the only way you can watch this game is you have a bet on it, but how the hell do you find an angle on this game?
That's why the internet was invented. You just check the score every so often. I have a good friend of mine. He likes to play a lot. He says, boy, what do you think? Isn't that a weird game, a weird line in the game?
What?
That's what he said, weird line. And I'm saying, what do you mean? I said, I made a pick. I have no idea what to do with this game. If anybody wants to lay me 11-10 to express their opinion, God bless. There's the counter right there. I have no idea what to think on this game.
I think it's the least handled game so far on the board, Chris. Right?
You're saying that. I have a ton of business on the total.
The total.
Both ways. Both ways.
Right. But the only total, by the way, that's lower is the Raider game.
Yeah. So Chris, I'll just throw this out there real quick. 39.5 open to 40 to 40.5 to 41 to 40.5 to 40 to the current 39.
And business the whole way.
On the total.
On the total.
That's amazing.
And I don't know. I don't think I have on the side. I don't think I have a dime bet on either side.
Numbers not moved all week.
No.
And
Why
honestly,
should it?
appropriately so.
Why should it? But the total, I mean,
You decide.
is a garbage game an over or an under? It's up to you.
Well, I mean, it's either it plays out like the game did a few weeks ago, where it was. I think it was the worst game of the NFL regular season so far until last night. Cal caught it, obviously, or it could be, as our old friend Wes Reynolds has said in the past, happy action fun time, where no defense shows up. So
right.
I'm willing to listen
could
to
be that too.
I'm willing to listen to either argument on this, Chris.
Yeah, it could be.
Makes sense that people have been flooding
Mason
the window
Rudolph
with the
lights
total.
it up. I mean, I wouldn't be that shocked.
Oh man, I mean Mac Jones and Mason Rudolph. What a quarterback matchup.
Next.
Thank you, Vinny. I don't know if we get much better on this next one. Jets go to Western New York to take on the Bills. The Bills last week,
Sleepwalking.
I guess that's the only real
Down
legitimate
14-0
excuse.
before
New England, the Patriots look like the 2-touchdown favorite early in that game. And look, credit to the Bills. They forced the big turnover in that game, come back, they win the game. They did never come close to really covering that big number last week against the Patriots. Now the Jets come walking in. The Jets last week, as I mentioned on Monday, became the second team since 1940 to not punt and not reach double-digit points in a game. They did that last week. Again, this is about the seventh time the Jets have done something bad this year that has happened either once, twice, or thrice since 1940.
Thrice, you're showing off that Missouri education again.
Gotta throw it out there every once in a while.
You have to remember, they were a throwback team.
Oh, yeah, sure, yes. Well, Jeff Ulbrich had his Brandon Staley game last week, which made no sense. But I very rarely will lay double-digit points in the National Football League. But with the fact that the Bills do not like this Jet team, for one, the Jets are awful, for two, the Bills wrap up the 2 seed with a win as well in this game, for 3. And the fact that this is again one of the few good home field advantages left in the National Football League. I laid 9.5. That was there earlier in the league. I laid 10. I think this is an absolute beatdown coming, where this is just the culmination of what has been an epic disaster for the Jets this year, culminating in what will be a destruction at the hand of the team that they are trying to catch in the AFC East.
I wish I had my gavel.
Please.
I'm not ruling against you or for you, because
Sure.
I made the number 10.
Okay.
And I think the 10 is a reasonable number. By the way, as you mentioned the weather, just a caveat out there for everybody listening.
Yeah.
The weather on the East Coast, the whole Northeast from Cincinnati on up, is horrible. As a matter of fact, even in Florida,
a lot of
rain.
So I will throw for this game, they're very lucky it's not cold. It's going to be 51 degrees.
Oh, is it really? Okay.
So it's rain.
It's rain.
If this was a game where it was 21 instead of 51, there's no shot I'm laying 10, because this game, who knows what would happen, because it'd be a lake effect snow game.
Yeah, a lot of rain. Like I said, when I put out the parlay card this week, I checked all the weather. Rain even in Florida. At least, on Monday we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So careful of the weather, everybody. If that's going to affect your handicapping, go ahead and take a look at it. And sometimes it's hard to gauge the wind when you're trying to make these predictions 5 days in advance. So certainly make a check of the wind. But I made the number 10. I think 10's okay here.
We'll need the Jets. I mean, there's no secret there, right? Between money line parlays, teasers. I think, Chrissy, didn't this game get to 11 briefly?
Not at my store. No.
I mean, there was just. I think the Bills learned a little something about themselves last week. Also, first of all, they're giving up a ton of points. This is a game where they can certainly, I think, get their defense right.
Yeah, that's the one thing. Like, we have the conversation like all year of like who's going to catch Kansas City, and it's pretty funny to be said that we've detracted KC all year, and they're going to go 15-2 at absolute worst, which is well, again, we know he doesn't play his guys. He's not going to play his guys next week in Denver. But look, for Buffalo, like that defense, and you mentioned it, Vinny. This defense has been. They're fortunate Josh Allen has been incredible, especially over the last, other than that game last week. Their defense has been terrible now for about a month.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this. I think I mentioned this yesterday. I don't remember if I mentioned this on Thursday or I mentioned this on Monday. If the Bengals somehow sneak in the back door in the AFC playoffs and Buffalo sees Cincinnati in a 2-7 game, first off, if there's no weather, I know you say you'll make the total 100, but I don't know if you can make the total high enough with Cincinnati and Buffalo.
Might
with the
hit
way,
60.
Yeah, I might.
If it's clear and fast.
Yeah, I mean, it could get to mid-60s for sure, but boy, I mean, they got to get their defense right if they're going to make a deep run. Because if the defense that they have right now, even though they've had problems with Baltimore to begin with anyway, I don't know if they beat Baltimore even at home. And
Baltimore's
good luck.
Defense has been better. Too.
Baltimore's defense was
made
awesome on Christmas as well.
They've made a couple of adjustments.
And for Buffalo, I mean, even if they get to the AFC title game in Kansas City, this version of their defense isn't beating Kansas City right now. They've really got to shore it up over the next 2 weeks and get themselves right for that first weekend of the postseason, whoever they may be playing in that game. All right. We mentioned the Bucs earlier. The Bucs will host the Panthers. Again, last week, boy, I know that was as good of an effort we've seen from the Cowboys, basically, other than week 1 against the Browns, who stink. But Tampa, I mean, look, that's a game you can't lose, and they lost. And here you are needing help elsewhere, plus needing to help yourselves. Again, they're going to be more than a touchdown favorite this week and next week, with New Orleans coming to town, Carolina coming to town this week. But you mentioned it, Chris. Panthers have been really good as an underdog over the last 2 months, and here you are again getting north of a touchdown. Remember, when these two teams played in Charlotte a few weeks ago, Carolina had that game won twice.
They did.
And they allowed a field goal at the end of regulation to force overtime, and then a fumble by Chuba, very reliable Chuba Hubbard, when in field goal range, led to a game-winning field goal for Tampa. Bucs were very fortunate to get out of Charlotte the win in that game. They're 8-point favorites in this one.
I think the number's right.
Yeah, I agree with
the
that.
number's okay. But I will say this. Sometimes you see a little sneaky money around. There's a little sneaky money on the futures on Tampa Bay.
Okay.
And, I try to monitor that. I mean, I got a lot of stuff to look for. But that's one of the things I try to monitor as much as I can. Some sneaky futures money on Tampa Bay. So kind of look out for them. I don't know if it means they're going to cover the 8. God knows. They could win this game 24-17, and Carolina never has a chance to win the game. But I'm just telling you right now, I see at least some wise guy money showing up in favor of Tampa. That being said, I don't like anybody. I think the number's fine where it is.
Another veteran team, right, on both sides of the ball. And Mayfield, he's a
tough kid.
He's a tough kid. He's a gunslinger, So, it'll be. The only reason that this number has not gotten higher yet, because I think it could, is because Carolina's playing better lately. That's the only reason.
Yeah.
Even as close as the game was in Carolina a few weeks ago.
It's for Tampa, and I actually kind of agree with the wise guy money that you're talking about on the futures. If they get there, they're a threat. They beat Philadelphia. They beat, and granted, Philly very different when they beat them.
Sure.
But they went into Detroit and beat the Lions.
Yeah, I'm telling you, be wary of this team.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see because it's still a matter of who gets the 5 seed. Again, there's still a scenario where Minnesota gets the 1 seed. Just remember that.
Yeah.
There's a live scenario at that still. But look, for Tampa, I mean, it's good for both Tampa and whoever wins the NFC West. You're going to have to play one of those 2 behemoths from the NFC North right out of the gate. So you get by that, you're battle tested right away. It's just a matter of having enough gas left to get through 3 playoff games, 2 most likely on the road.
And there's always hedging scenarios, too.
Oh, yeah.
You're taking a big price like they are in the future book.
All right, let's go to the really, realistically speaking, this is the one tremendous game. Yeah.
Why isn't this why didn't this one get flexed?
I think I don't remember if this is Fox or CBS, whichever one of them. They protected it. They protected the game. I think it's Fox protected it.
So it's a network thing.
And thankfully, they moved this game to the later window. Which, by the way, what the hell's up with this scheduling this week? Where we're going to have 2 games at 1 o'clock? What are we doing here? Just horrendous. Vikings and Packers. First time these teams met. Remember, Jordan Love was coming off being injured, and Jordan Love in Lambeau, the game was in Lambeau. Jordan Love was awful in that game. Minnesota got out 28-0. Yeah. Packers made it look close. They ended up being 31-29. Minnesota had to recover an onside kick in order to close that game out completely. But look, both of these teams, credit the Vikings. Again, Chris, we've been talking about it. We're trying to go against them all these weeks and can't get them.
Giving up on that.
Well, if you got the right number on Seattle, you did cover last week.
Okay.
But you can't beat them on the money line, these Vikings right now, who, if they win out, will go 15-2. That's crazy. As that is, only with a win total of 6.5, by the way.
We all almost universally picked them to be last in the division.
They were the odds-on team. They were they had the longest odds to win that division.
Yeah,
and they
by a mile.
And if they win their last two, they'll get the number 1 seed in the NFC. Chris, this has been a toggler this week between one and pick. And go
My
ahead.
friend that bought the half a point off a
Is he
pick.
going to do it? Is he going to do it again?
Well, he's no longer with us.
Oh, well,
but he might
could someone do it in his honor then?
I haven't seen it
I
yet.
might have to do it, Chris, but if we get back to pick. But, boy, this is just a tremendous game because both of these teams have been playing some amazing football over the last 6 weeks. And these quarterbacks, again, indoor game, remember that as well. Yeah. These quarterbacks will be dealing with ideal conditions inside U.S. Bank Stadium for this one.
I think I mentioned it on one of our shows this week. Aaron Schatz, real terrific statistical breakdown guy. He has the Packers playing as well as anybody in the entire NFL like the last 4 weeks. And a lot of that has to do with Jordan Love. They also have a terrific coach. And, for a team that has no owner, they have a terrific organization. And they've been a competitive team. I mean, since Brett Favre was a quarterback 35 years ago or whatever that was, 30 years ago, they're always in the hunt. And right now they're, like I said, Aaron Schatz, I have to respect Aaron. He has them playing as good a football as anybody in the NFL right now. But I still think the Vikings have to be up there too. So pick 'em, I think, is a good. Is that where I'm at right now, Jeff? Is pick 'em?
You're at 1 right now.
I'm at Vikings one.
Yeah, Vikings 1.
Vikings 1 pick. They're cutting it pretty close. But I think this is a team playing some great football, both of them.
So no real action on the side between the Panthers and Bucks. Everybody will be involved in this game.
Oh yeah.
So
I like the
game.
road team in this game. I just think they're the bad way. Look, could Minnesota win again and beat me again? Of course.
Why not? It's been
Why
happening
not?
for 6
I mean,
weeks.
it's only been happening for about 6 weeks. We got them at least on the spread at least a few times.
We did once,
but I look at that first matchup, I think really came down to the fact that Jordan Love was just not healthy. But if you're looking at it from the other side, the Green Bay Packers this year have lost 4 games. All 4 of those games have come against the elite of the elite in the NFL. The Eagles twice against Detroit and Minnesota. So as well, they've dominated. They beat every single team they were supposed to beat this year. They're 0-4 against the teams with better records against them this year. So they haven't played up particularly great. Granted, that second Detroit game was a game decided on a 4th down conversion and a chippy field goal at the end. The Eagle game was a coin flip game at the end. The 2 games at Lambeau against Detroit and Minnesota got decided by Love turnovers. But I think the Packers are very live, not only, again, to win this game, I think they're live to win the NFC and thus the Super Bowl because of that. Because this defense still does not get the due for how good they are. This is a really good defense that now with Jeff Hafley as the defensive coordinator instead of those years with Joe Barry, they're just so much more solid. They don't make the same mistakes they made under Barry. They don't allow a lot of big plays. They turn you over. This is a good, solid Green Bay defense. And as good as Minnesota's defense has been, especially with that confusing scheme Flores runs, I think Green Bay's defense is actually better than theirs. And I like the Packers outright here against the Vikings, which means Minnesota probably wins by 1. That's probably what we get here, Chris.
I'm not disputing anything you said. I think it's a hell of a game.
Great game.
I can't wait to see it. I have no real opinion. I think my numbers came to Minnesota 1.
Right on it.
But that's hard to have an opinion based on numbers and really, as far as play on the field, these are 2 of the best teams in the NFL playing. And if this was an NFC Championship game, I don't think any of us would be surprised.
I would love it if that was the case. In all honesty.
Youngest team in the league. They made a run at the end. The Packers made a run at the end of last year. Looks like this this game will tell if they're making a run now at this time of year as well, right? So, Love protects the ball, certainly to their advantage.
All right, 3 games to go on this NFL card this week. We go to Philadelphia next. This game was moved to an earlier slate, and I think thank goodness because of that. CeeDee Lamb's season is over for the Cowboys, and quite frankly, correctly so. Took another giant hit to that right shoulder last week. Only gutted it out and played a tremendous game after that, but Dallas correct to shut him down. You're going nowhere. It's been battered enough this year. On the Eagles side, they lose last week, which pretty much eliminates any chance of them getting up to the 1 seed at this rate.
Right.
The bigger thing is Jalen Hurts isn't going to play again. He's out with a concussion. So this is Hurts, who left last week with a concussion, not cleared in time to play this week, which then begs the question, if you win this week with Kenny Pickett, they're still 7.5-point favorites, even with the backup quarterback. Of course, Cooper Rush still playing for Dallas. Do we even see Jalen Hurts in week 18? At this point, even if he's out of concussion protocol, why risk it if you have the 2 seed in the division wrapped up if you're Philadelphia? You know what? With Kenny Pickett as the quarterback, and Chris, you kind of had this baked in for a few days with this number now because it actually moved up since the news has come up.
Yeah.
I kind of like Dallas plus the points, though, now with Pickett, just because, to the Cowboys' credit, They had as much of any team in the league to give up. Any reason.
They've won 4 out of 5.
They have not. They've played very hard for Mike McCarthy, who's more likely a dead man walking at this point in that head coaching position. I think this is a close game. I think the Eagles still find a way to win, but I'll very happily take a 7.5 with Dallas here.
With Kenny Pickett, I would agree with you. You know, we opened this game 10.
Yep.
And then when all the news came out, I dropped it way down. I dropped it to 7. With Pickett being anticipated as a starter. But the thing was, we weren't even sure Pickett was going to be the starter. You know, he had some injuries to overcome. But now he is, at this point in time, locked in as the starter. And the money started showing back on Philly. We took some action, took some pretty good action, -7. We're up to 7.5 on it. And I think they'll take the 7.5. I think this will be a famous toggler, 7.5. And, if I need the Cowboys here, I'm okay with that, and I'm not sure I'm not sure McCarthy is dead man walking. I'm not sure about that. I think he has a good chance to retain his job, especially if he wins this game. I think he's got a hell of a chance to keep his job.
You know, even with the injuries, everybody will be involved with this game. Certainly brand recognition, and I think as low as the total has gotten now. Again, even with the injuries, it'll probably go back up somewhat. Will it get back to the opener? No way. The opener was 43. I don't think we get there. But
38 on the total.
Yeah. It's only actually this is the only one lower than the only one lower than this one is the Raider game. So
we got one other. We got one other 37.5 that you just moved to as well that we'll get to in a second. Chris mentioned the weather is dreadful in a lot of places. Where that is included here again. If it was cooler in a lot of these spots, we'd be getting a whole bunch of snow globe games. It's going to be 61 degrees. That sounds pretty darn good for the last Sunday of the calendar year.
Balmy.
20-mile-an-hour winds and rain.
Check the wind. Right?
Yeah,
Check the wind.
So this is a big wind game here in Philadelphia for this one. Again, that also kind of leads me to taking points as well, because even though Dallas has struggled to run the ball this year, they have been better since giving Rico Dowdle more action over the last few weeks. All right, let's go to what was the initial Sunday night game. Now this is being played in the afternoon, 4:05 East, 1:05 Pacific. Cleveland hosting Miami. This is another weather game. 55 degrees for the last Sunday of the year in Cleveland. All right, you take that 100 times out of 100. Well, when the weather calls for 12-mile-an-hour consistent winds, gusts up to 30, and a 90% chance of heavy rain, yeah, it's not good. You add in DTR, you add in the fact that Miami does not like playing in inclement weather. This total has just gotten pummeled to the under from 40.5 to 37.5. And Chris, based off that weather report, by the way, Miami's a 6.5-point favorite. That hasn't moved all week.
No.
Based off this weather report, it might not be over yet if that wind report gets worse over the next 48 hours.
Yeah, and I mean, really, we look at Miami would be the quote-unquote offensive team. I'm not sure about their offense. They don't throw the ball down the field. Not that you'll be able to in a game like this. I don't know. I have no real opinion on the game on the side, but you mostly have to respect the move on the total, which has moved tremendously, and we can see why.
One of two afternoon games. Wow. Well, which with only 2 games, no matter what, with the weather and everything like that, we're looking at a lot of interest, and maybe not so much on the total anymore, but certainly on the side. And with the weather being what it is at home, I wouldn't be shocked if this number comes down. Right, that kind of weather, the wind in particular, pretty good equalizer.
I kind of wish Jameis was still playing for Cleveland, because him playing in this weather would have produced something spectacular.
Well, the total wouldn't have come down.
Well, I mean, look, there would be you want Miami's defense in fantasy for your fantasy playoffs if Jameis was still playing. It still might not be bad with DTR, but I think we might just see a lot of running here on the ground with Cleveland in this one because of that weather. All right, last game of the NFL card this week, Monday night. Well, this was supposed to be the NFC title game preview game. Not so much, because the Niners have been this disaster this year. Well, you said it at the beginning of the year. We try to convince ourselves otherwise that the Super Bowl loser is going to be fine. Not so much. Niners missed the playoffs completely. They're done. Lions 3.5-point favorites on the road in Santa Clara on Monday night. Final game of the calendar year in the NFL. Lions need to win the last 2 games to get the 1 seed. But if they win and Minnesota loses to Green Bay, that's another way they can get to the 1 seed as well. So they could be playing to wrap up the 1 seed here in this game on Monday night. This is a toggler, 3.5, 3.5, 51.5 to 50.5. I know Detroit's decimated on defense with injuries, but with the way that the Niners have seemingly kind of packed it in for the offseason here, I don't love laying the wrong side of 3 here, but I think Detroit is the right side in this game, Chris.
Absolutely agree with you. This is going to be one. I only have 2 plays I like this week. This is one of them. This team, we talked about Campbell bringing in an attitude of just everything about this team. And I think it'll be a reflection. It'll be reflected in this game. They have a million injuries, but you know what? Regardless of the injuries, they are just much superior to a decimated 49er team at this point in time who listen, I don't want to put myself in their position, but I think it has to be a tremendous disappointment to be eliminated from the playoffs. They really thought that they had a chance to be the NFC representative in the Super Bowl, and they're nowhere near that. But I think Detroit comes in here. I really like Detroit. I think this number should have been closer to 6 myself. So I really like Detroit. I have a strong opinion in this game.
I'll tell you what carryover won't have as big an impact as the factor of what happens with Minnesota, right? If Minnesota loses, then I think you have to bump this anyway. Just
probably
that incentive. But you couple those 2 things. Now, if Minnesota wins, still right there, the incentive is look, okay, we're going to have a playoff game against Minnesota next week, right? I mean, that's the last game of the season. So support. There'll be more support for the Lions in this game, even on the road, no doubt.
It's it's just the way that this has gone for the Niners, and it kind of made it out this year to being, hey, since we missed last year, kind of got to win the thing this year, and hasn't worked out. Now they have to. Again, Deebo Samuel's had a nightmare of a season. They're going to have to pay Purdy moving forward. This league. Window slams pretty quickly unless if you have an all-time great quarterback. And look, even Tom Brady went 8 years without winning the Super Bowl as well. So Peyton Manning only won 2. Dan Marino never won 1. All these great quarterbacks, and now you have the Niners.
Bradshaw won 4. How many didn't he win?
Exactly. I mean, and look,
5 or 6.
And for this franchise that has really just built a great roster, where they made a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo, they made a Super Bowl with Brock Purdy. I mean, they haven't had to pay a quarterback, and they probably have to pay Purdy. So this gets exponentially more difficult to be a consistent winner for the Niners moving forward, and they missed the window this year in 2024. All right, Chris, you said Detroit was one of your two plays. What's the other one this week?
Washington.
The Commanders.
Yeah. Again, I hate chalk, but, I think they're clearly the superior side against an Atlanta team that's, I don't know how the hell they're even in this position. But they beat Tampa twice. So let's face it, that's how they did it. But I don't think it's a very good team, and I just think Washington has it all over this team, and I hate laying points, like I said, but I'm going to lay points in both those games, and I think both favorites win it.
It is going to be a fun weekend leading up to what is going to be, again, New Year's Eve is always crazy here in Las Vegas, but the fact that we have 4 college football playoff games starting on New Year's Eve, boy, what a great week coming up here at the South Point and across this city. But again, one last time before we get out of here, please come down here.
Do yourself a favor.
Go to the Rampart. If you're driving through in Mesquite, go to Casablanca, go to Virgin River, get this card in. This is a monster overlay right now. Mm-hmm. Take advantage. $5 gives you a shot at $25K. You only have to pick 15 games, winners only.
It's only winners.
No
point spreads.
Maybe hard, but hey, look, if you hit a 15-leg parlay here, $5 into $25K, that's a pretty good way to start your 2025.
Listen, let's say you play Texas.
Yeah.
And they lose. Everybody had Texas. It's not going to hurt you.
No, at least it shouldn't. At least it shouldn't.
You never know.
You never know.
This isn't one of those where we have, $30,000 worth of entry fees. So I don't think the disparity will be there. I don't think somebody's going to pick Arizona State and win this thing. I don't think so.
All right. That's all the time we have before we go. Shout out to the chat, Agent 87. Ryan's in there. Vince is in there as well. The poll, which dog are you taking in the college football quarterfinals? And this one surprised me with no majority. No majority on the vote here, guys.
No.
Boise State gets the nod at plus 11 with 43% of the vote.
Wow.
And that is what I call an upset, my friends. I would have expected Oregon to win that poll, to say the least.
Outright?
No, just with the points. With the points.
Okay.
With the points.
Still.
And,
I can see it. Yeah.
And then what's your favorite game tomorrow in the NFL? That was very much a majority. 90% picked that Cincinnati and Denver game as their game to watch and bet on Saturday in the NFL. All right, shout out to the crew, Drew Dog, Vince, Ryan, Jerry, wherever Jerry went, and Caden, everyone, Sean. Pleasure as always, Chris, Vinny. Thank you very much. Happy New Year to both of you.
Love these guys.
Yeah,
could have never done it without these guys.
The crew, we don't survive without the crew.
That's right.
Don't survive at all.
Is this on?
Okay. There's no extra wires like Saturday, though, Vinny.
No, there was this headset thing. Boy. Tomorrow I come in here, but that's right. Sirocco's here first, right?
Yep.
He's got more wires than the FBI.
Alex and I are back tomorrow at 8 a.m. Get you ready. All the bowl games, the NFL, a lot on a Saturday betting card at 8 a.m. right here on Sports by the Book. We'll see you then. Good luck in all your plays. This has been Football Frenzy on Sports by the Book.